당은저 가서 지상은 저기 신 temperature says in by na ranging to the by 최근에 신나 라신 주버 says 요 말에서 그시 라신 주버 says 요 바이나 규단기 강라에 마되바 류파 샤발라 마되바 코로나 랑군이 줍되바 요 고고레스 데네지 요 바이나 데나 저기 제보디 규들에 개발에 세대 팅 말에서 아니 규기 파제부 개발에 세대 팅 말에서 그래서는 랑기 원이 줍나 가야 마도 규와메 규와 마줘봐 다가랑 나마 간지 다하라 내바시 고고레스 제선다 규단 제보세디 규도 규와 침벌에 되네 제보도 용고 기고고래 제선다 제보도 규를 되네 기고 셴을 띄고고래 제선다 규디한 제보를 되네 규샤고고래 제선 된지지 제와죠 차고래 되네자 라신 주바이나 안규 제보 기에서다 제보 기에서다 제보도 규를 기버려서 가야 되게 말해서 하상한 저 디고 제바치야다 삼다다 이슈버래.
Good morning. Last night we concluded looking at the section on the diamond slivers method of refutation. We saw in this particular technique that whilst all phenomena appear to consciousness as if they exist by way of their own nature, if they did exist in the way that they appear, in other words, if their appearance was in accordance with reality, then that would mean that because something exists by way of its own nature, it is independent. Because it already exists by way of its own nature, nothing else would impact on it, and thereby there would be no impetus for it to ever change. So to be unchanging and independent. If that is how any phenomenon existed, then it could never have been a result that came about independent on a cause. So that was the second part we looked at. And previously we looked at, moreover, any phenomenon that appears, that if any phenomenon existed by way of its own nature, it could never serve as a cause leading to a result. So therefore, if any phenomenon existed inherently, it could not itself be a result, or it could not be a cause leading to a result, because it would be unchanging and independent if it were inherently existent.
난 제수바 돈다 닝보를 주 돈다 뒤제 융융지를 뒤니 셰바이나다 돌나 규다께 셴라 되네 라닌 주괴바시 인친체 라왕외고네 주바 갈때 라왕당 셴라 되바 가외소스.
Now turning to the text at the top of page 15, and starts to be concise. So this is now going to summarize what we've looked at before on the previous page. That at where we looked at production, if production were if production were inherently existent, it couldn't come about at all. So we looked at those 4 points in the diamond slivers. So now we come to summarize that. To be concise, as the existence of something necessarily is dependent on causes and conditions and on others, it is necessarily contradictory for it to exist independently. This is because independence and dependence on others are contradictory.
바도르드네 셰바이나 지는 규단견은 뒤지 용어보 가능치는 규단견라 되네 기고고래 규단견라 되네 아니 현지라 랑이 많이 봐 대제부디 기인로도 제부디 랑래 현바 규현다지라 되네 주고고로 현지라 되네 주고바 규단견라 되네 기고바다 현지라 되네 주고바 인자 되네 있나 아니 라왕아 세디 용하요 말해서 라왕이 주바디 가스 라왕을 주바스네 샹라 마되바 코랑 뭐니 주바텔라 라왕 주바세로 예와드나 랑기 지사 라왕 주브나 샹라 미되바체 아니 코랑 뭐니 주고 거래스 지사다 샹라 뒤에지 규단见了 되는 주바디 계급요바디 주바디 지사 샹라 뒤기도 와스 지사 샹라 마되바 라왕 주바세 차가 말 지사 라왕 주바세야 되다 샹라 뒤에네 주바니데 가와레스 가와차고레스
Impermanent phenomena all arise independent on causes and conditions. They necessarily do so. And all phenomena are mutually dependent, or to express that differently, dependent on others. So therefore, it is certainly contradictory for such phenomena to exist independently. The text then continues, this is because independence and dependence on others are contradictory. So the term, what we have here in English is clear, and the term that is translated as independence is literally, can in other contexts will be called freedom, and what literally means self-powered. So I mention this because independence and dependence is very clear, but just to get an understanding of what freedom would mean independent. Similarly, you may have seen in other texts self-powered, as opposed to if something is dependent, it is dependent on others, or maybe you could say other-powered. So if something were independent, so we summarize here, this is because independence and dependence on others are contradictory. We come to recognize through our reflection that phenomena all exist dependently on others.
지금 파말이야 지금 흉리 띵거로 파말이 띵거래 사실나 제베나 땜바다 고 셴리 뛰고 말 코로랑기 아니 제투고래 사실 여러분다 내 부으로 지나 코롱 조투고랑기 라왕기 고 조투고래 사다 아니 부디 코롱 조투고 라왕 조투고 말에 걸려 로보 고고래 사실 고고로 봐지다 셴지를 뛰지 로보지를 뛰는 조바이나 라왕기 조투고 말에 사다 先来对么就可能两个人个人的找图也是呢，可让我找图过，让我去图过的事情，西个人指定，这三个人指定别个去给什么些办，那个指定把给些办呢，先去了对个有把的，让我去图没把的，可让我去图呢，先来对个没把的，第二的先来对把的，让我给图把你把的，搞我才给图把的，那个这个指定别给些办呢。
In society, we see that whilst there is an acceptance of interdependence or dependence on others, there is also a pushback against this as people seek out their own self-power or independence. So we think, for example, of children. It's very clear children are dependent on others, especially young children. It's very clear they're dependent on their parents as well as others in society. As they get older, they start to assert their independence. Independence, again, is the same word as being self-powered. But this searching for independence, and again the word for independence, self-powered, and freedom, same word. So the search for one to be under one's own power or to be independent or free, this ignores the reality of our interdependence with others, our codependence or mutual dependence with others. And so this is something that we can recognize in society too.
但是说给新干节的具有些呢，说不这个嘛，说让做土路啊，现在可让往做土可被一些的个人呢，是说让往去土的。给马新话说的那个这个呢，俺现在了对接，俺就做了些是，其实现在说不起这个了吧？就是俺这个现在说不这个这呢嘛，都是说让给接嘛都得了，现在对吧了吧？现在说不嘛个吧，就说让给接土鱼呢，现在没对吧了吧？你那些人的遇到这部些的。这不可能结巴了，现在如果结果个本子，现在对吧来说了，这种具有如果结巴，这的结婚真现对吧来说，就是他没对吧结巴呢，现在如果今年没如果了没对吧，可能让个结土吧结巴呢，结土吧结巴呢，但让往结巴是这个了，就是你那你按这个几点别拿来的那个让往的这把当。这个现在对吧？你的搞啊，差不多啊。第二是当然这个都先确把俺这个结巴结个这电这个那么些参谋的来写完的，其实现在对吧？的当现在嘛对吧？让往你的搞啊，差不多的。第二是俺最多这新主线呢，让把那呀这参谋什么呀这些的，可能他现在对吧？是通嘛多，现在没对吧？可能我们让往主吧得通过嘛是吧的。马通完之后，俺就拿一堆，刚来嘛都让我的拿完的拿出来的，拿出去拿的个了吧？就是拿完那些要嘛的，啥的，那俺就看上的写的，那都是在那英国的底下的是吧？
Just to first say, with this explanation that I'm about to translate, bear in mind these synonyms of freedom, self-powered independence, as well as synonyms from before, production, birth, arisal. Because if you bear in mind those synonyms, I can only use one at a time, it helps give a flavor for what's being said. If we were independent, like we and all phenomena appear to our mind, we would not be being independent, we would not ever be dependent, which means our birth, so production or arisal, our birth, this would have come about without any dependency on anything at all. It would have been self-powered. Again, self-powered, independent, free. But that, of course, was not the case. We were born independent on others, parents, medical support, etc. Likewise, if we were independent, we would never need the assistance of others. Throughout our life, we clearly do. And at the time of illness, and we need to go to a hospital, we usually will get there, especially if we're very ill, independence on others. And we go there because we know we depend on others and we need to go to those upon whom we are depending when we are in dire health. This description, on one hand, is obviously clear. We know that from birth throughout our life and to the point of severe illness or death, we are dependent on others. But that is not how we live our lives. It's not how people in society live our lives. We live our lives as if we were independent, free, self-powered. Because that is how each and every phenomenon appears to us. And if we did exist in the way that we appear, and if all phenomena existed in this way, they could not interact with each other because they would be self-powered. But this is not the case. So we understand this on an intellectual level. But this understanding on an intellectual level, we need to integrate through first recognizing how phenomena appear as independent. And secondly, that it is contradictory for them to exist in this way when they are so clearly dependent. And that understanding we need to integrate well.
Deke duyan doles donalma sonya deda andu sungo reje gashi kinla jeba dema je dela jebe rashi yema yin ne kinla rale gangde dongbra she gashi dongyi she de ba ye yin se
Now we have a quotation from the King of Nagas Sutra, the questions of the King of Nagas. That which is produced from causes is not inherently produced. It does not have an inherent nature of production. That which depends on causes is taught to be empty. Whosoever knows emptiness is conscientious. The first line in this quotation refers to what we looked at previously in the 2 sessions ago and summarized again last night. That which is produced, so in other words, compounded phenomena or impermanent phenomena, are produced from causes. So that which is produced from causes, so all compounded phenomena, are not inherently produced. Production cannot be inherently existent, nor can causes be inherently existent. The second line, it does not have an inherent nature of production. So impermanent phenomena or compounded phenomena are mutually dependent. They come about in dependence on others, for example, causes and conditions. Therefore, they cannot be inherently produced. That which depends on causes is taught to be empty. If something has arisen in dependence on other, such as on causes, it is empty of being self-powered or self-existent, and therefore it is empty of existing by way of its own nature or inherent existence.
Gashi niba gashi dongyi she de ba yue yin se de zhan che kan de xin kan lai ma de ba ran wen wen de zhu bi dong bu ge dong ba ni de do ba yin na de dongyi do bi ge dongyi do bi lo chi ge yang de de do bi lo de ge yang de de ba yue cha ge de ba yue de dian ba cha ge de ba yue yin se.
And the fourth line, whoever knows emptiness is conscientious. In other words, whomever has given rise or generated the wisdom realizing emptiness, that wisdom realizing emptiness leads to them being conscientious.
Ba meba karre lamne nga zuli ya ane chi kong zhuo jie jie 콘트게나다 셈파 트네 안데 랑 마기바 셴 마기바 라신이가 마기바 치도 바메바 책으로 봐. 된 안에 착바게 차비 원게랑 랑 마기바 셴 마기바 라신이가 마기바 치도 바메바 나야다 되니가 녀모베리 기계여도 바메바 책으로. 제가 아주 동반이 또별로 동반이 제바 제주도 동니의 라신이 주변 동반이 또별로 지금 아주 그래 개바 이나 안에 바여바 책이래서도 아주래 마기버스요 라신이가 마기버스게 되차 공조 나게 녀모 비릭티 기 말해서 그러다 떠나지시 그래.
Those who have come to realize emptiness and through realizing that all phenomena are mutually dependent, are dependent arisings, and therefore are empty of inherent existence. And because phenomena are empty of inherent existence, yet still exist as dependent arisings, such learned people, they give rise to conscientiousness, or they are conscientious. Being conscientious means they are not non-conscientious. And what does it mean to not be conscientious? It means that one is led or guided or under the influence of the afflictions. If one isn't conscientious, then one will act under the influence of the afflictions. Anger will arise, and one will take the appearance as true, and thereby act under the influence of anger. Or attachment will arise because one has taken an appearance to be true, and then act under the influence of attachment. Likewise with pride too. And thereby one harms oneself and one harms others as well. So that is when for those who aren't conscientious, they remain under the influence of the afflictions. Those who have come to realize reality or understand reality, they are thereby conscientious.
bene gewi jawa ya hoshi nyamlen che tingi zen gomba ine teni ke sem nyomo bo cho so da ba me ba cha sem di nyomo bo cho da pa ga jin gewi jawa la an samlo di du chi de gewi jawa la zhen yo de di ba yo ba che ge gewi jawa 제자 gewi sem nyomo bo ri so do so ba na ba me ba che ge ro 제자 nyomo bo on do so wa de pa khon ro ki ya ga nyo de cha ki pa ga je gewa di sem gewi cho lo sem ba de sem 제어도 셈 바여봐 제가 계획자와 변의 준주 좀 야다 쇠벽고 미야다 근데 지 두체바는 수름 소야로서 삼다는데 되게 삼노되기 바여봐지 다 수름이 도초 샤래 뇌베 삼바 콘르기야다 셴자다 아니 쇠벽 도초 샤래야 뇌베기야 쇠벽고 모두 셴다 바메봐 제가로 지산다 동유 공부나 동유도 별로데 깨바이나 바미베 삼노되기 용주그래 바가루그래 예시로 다디가요된 도초 가르스데 바미베 도초디 셈 바유데 리기레서 바유베 지정한 저기 개위 냠는 제하다 가르치네 디 바유디 냠는 야고 리기레서 그러다.
Again, before I translate what Genla said, the term conscientiousness is sometimes translated as carefulness. So here the carefulness is an aspect of being conscientious. So carefulness is not a good translation, but it is relevant. So bear in mind that conscientiousness includes the aspect of being careful or carefulness. Now to translate what Genla said. When one realizes or understands emptiness, one becomes conscientious, meaning one turns away from unconscientious or non-conscientious behavior, turning away from being under the influence of afflictions. Therefore, we should understand conscientiousness and ethical restraint to be closely aligned. When one has understood reality, one will want to act in accordance with one's understanding of reality. One will want to turn away from a behavior that is contrary to reality because one has recognized the harm that follows. Therefore, one's wisdom realizing emptiness aids one's ethics. And this comes together with the mental factor of conscientiousness. Having realized or come to understand emptiness, one with a strong determination, a single-pointed determination, will commit to living an ethical life. And what ensures that we keep our way of thinking unafflicted and therefore ethical, virtuous, is the mental factor of conscientiousness. So the sequence here is that to the extent one is understanding reality or developing a wisdom realizing emptiness, one will want to act in accordance with that and not act in a contrary way, in other words, an afflicted way. And therefore, one will be determined, have a single-pointed determination to be ethical. And it's conscientiousness that will, the mental factor of conscientiousness that ensures we keep our mind ethical. In other words, subdued, not impacted or not influenced by the afflictions.
Alright, 당은 동반이 도바나 ane sem 바유 차기래 바유 연구래 사기위 자와디게 ane 야구 연구래 숨으로와 지사 당은 저기 두 신의 그생 제반하신 전에 아주 현실을 되는 주바 현의 규단견 현실을 되는 주바디 하고 현실을 되는 주바다 하고도 현 강라에 맞어봐 랑은 뭐는 주바디 자오기니 미루 선배기 러디게 되어서 동반이 도바시고로와 다디 또도 되네게 또 벌로도 끼에나 아나 가르 연구를 랍나 당아 주기라 랑문이 좀 나와나시 진비게 로디 로너주임바다 하고 그래 이 로너주임바 하고 요도 아나 당보디세 로너주임바다 하고 그래제
Taking this line together with what we heard last night and previously, through one's reflections, one comes to understand that phenomena all appear to us as being independent or self-powered. But this is not how they exist, and one comes to understand how they appear, and through one's analysis recognizes that they are not self-powered, but other-powered. They are not self-powered, but are dependent on others. In other words, they are not independent or self-powered, but are dependent on others. Coming to realize this, one recognizes that all appearances that are independent, where all phenomena that appear as being independent, this is mistaken. The consciousness that apprehends this appearance is a mistaken consciousness.
电见者我穷我明将大约怎么有把多法是明将大约怎么听语本了却他们在电见者我穷显起了对内明将大约怎么有把也是电穷差不多些的多把的却他们在让心这个东北有多把呢多被落结把呢八月才个也是给月加把的亚国用过的是个说的亚国用它的肯定是用过的是的都是的马学的
To the extent that one's coming to understand reality, coming to understand the subtle view of the Prasangika, that phenomena exist merely as imputations by mind, that to the extent that one understands this, one's determination to live an ethical life, to have an ethical outlook, will grow. 电见者穷啊，民间大约怎么写的？好过的，想了对的，主把怎么跑略小把怎么的民族生好过的，这刚来嘛的人文的主把的东巴的下，是东沙的东巴也多用了。第多样的，啊那个好过的是呢，地形啊，就闹的人刚来嘛的人文的主把闹啊，的闹啊闹出的的闹出引把的好过，的闹啊的有的身边进把的落线引把的好过的，但落线引把好过的。 你拿出银包落些的了，年报的要把的年报东巴一多别落，这个那个要把的，你公把那凭那个落的让心主把这边落的没把水土要把的，得了呀，那这个年报要把的还过了，哇的还过了，东巴一多的。 as one continues to make repeated and sustained effort in coming to understand this topic and integrate it through reflection, one will recognize that every object of thought appears as if it is independent or free or under its own power. But when one investigates, no phenomenon can be found to exist in the way that it appears, and therefore is empty of existing in the way that it appears. It's empty of being independent or existing by way of its own nature, its own inherent nature. And here one comes to recognize that the way that phenomena appear is mistaken, in that the way that phenomena appear is not how they exist in reality. So therefore, because the way they appear is not how they exist in reality, the way they appear is mistaken. And then a consciousness that apprehends this appearance is a wrong consciousness. So a consciousness that apprehends this appearance as being true, as being this appearance as being in accordance with how the object exists in reality, is necessarily a wrong consciousness, because we've understood that the way phenomena appear as independent is not how they exist in reality. And furthermore, one comes to recognize that this wrong consciousness that apprehends phenomena or grasps that phenomena as existing in the way that they appear, that wrong consciousness can be eradicated through the cultivation of the antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And to the degree that one realizes or understands this, one will strive to develop this antidote ever more powerfully within oneself.
Chinada denzi mariba di pa sabon je sabon basha de je ba pang tugu yo ba de ha ko re pang tugu yo ba jesa denni ge pang tugu yo ba ha ko de ndi basha de je ba denzi sabon basha je pang bo yo ba de ta ko tu ko jesa de nga ju ge da so nyang de sa ju wa dai ga so de da nga ju ge chue ku sa ji chu ku le ya ku ji lo chue ku long ku zhu ku sa ji lo jesa chue ku nyom mo ba pang bi basha de je ba pang bo yo ba tong de sang ji go ba mo ni do go da sang ji go ba de sang ji go ba de tu yo ba de do go lo ba jesa sang ji go ba tu yo ba de dong ba ni do ne do ba yin zan de le de ne an sang ji go ba tu yo ba de mo ni do go le din do ba zan sang ji go ba to ye sang ji le ya sem ding gi xi ne de ba to ba se de ko mo ni su de sang ji do san be che me nge ba ni ne de sang ji le de ba di li go le jesa xi ne de ba to ba se sang ji le de ba ji li go le 제삼 다 상제 고반스도 년도로 년도 시를 차사로 디바 탐제 빵배 빵바디 여바디 또 거라 제가 상제 고반 또 거다 제가 디 통여도 안 될이야 상제에 상제래야 즉 상제 원 또제네 될이야 대방 지키고 제가 신에 대바 더 봐야지.
Continuing with the sequence then, recognizing that recognizing what is the ignorance of self-grasping and the role that it plays, and that it can be eliminated, that there is an antidote, we will recognize that what keeps us bound within the suffering realms of samsara, this affliction, this consciousness of ignorance, it can be eradicated. And not only can it be eradicated, but it can be eradicated completely so that it never arises again. In other words, it cedes. And moreover, even its stains can be eradicated. So there's no appearance will ever come again of true existence. Recognizing that ignorance of self-grasping together with its seeds can be eradicated, the afflicted obscurations, as well as the imprints, the obscurations to omniscience, can be eradicated. The practitioner knows that Buddhahood itself is achievable, that this attainment or the cultivation, the development of this antidote is possible. It can be done, and therefore Buddhahood can be achieved. It's not just something that one has heard about or something that one aspires to achieve, but one now knows it is possible. And therefore, one will strive with every fiber of one's being to become a Buddha. And to give rise to this determination comes about independence on this entire sequence that has been presented in this and the previous segment, through coming to recognize this with vivid clarity. One will strive with every fiber of one's being to become a Buddha.
이체비게 라마다 되니게 이체비게 대바스마도 체명 에버니네 아니 신의 대바 토바세디 대바디 용고 가지 이체게 대바스마도 신의 대바세디 용고 말아 지나다 동반이 또 봐이나 상이 영원의 여바 상이 투비 차상 상이 고판의 통제 체명 에버니 되네 대바디 요자 신의 대바 토바디 대바디다 요균에 따투에 수지게 요와 따투에 메르와 요와 따투에 메르와 이치 치는 데바면 미케바지 깨라지 뭐저 디야지 디데스 남네 어디 요로에 내가 요로와.
This development of conviction, or the word literally is faith, but let's say conviction, that Buddhahood is possible. This progressively develops within the mind of the practitioner. It's at the point where wisdom is realized with a valid cognizer that it becomes incredibly powerful and cannot be shaken. So one can say that such faith in the attainment of Buddhahood is unshakable when one has a realization of emptiness. And as that realization grows, so too does the faith or the conviction. Prior to a realization with a valid cognizer of emptiness, one's faith or conviction can still arise. Then it will arise, though, not in dependence on one's own experience, but in terms of one's own meditative experience, but in dependence on one's faith or trust in one's Lama and his teachings. So in dependence on faith or trust in Lama and teachings, faith in the attainment of Buddhahood, that Buddhahood is possible for oneself, does arise. But that is not yet of incredible power. When one has generates a valid cognizer realizing emptiness, then one's conviction or faith becomes unshakable.
탑람 디제네 캡산이 줍투고요 받아 데네기 캡산이 시우자고요 받아 돈다이 통하나 총디게알레 미딜이야 총디게알 베 셈슈시 우치다 베 지보 셈슈시 우치레제 총디게알레 베슈시 우치기로와 다이 캡산으로 시라 캡산데 지게 자기나면서 도과사 캡산데 야고자고요 봐 하모고 디 총디 캡산 라에 돈다기 총게 탑람데 야고 마신 바이나 근데 총 갑자기 개월 직진의 경화를 직진에 안 샘슈시라 말에 했는데 용 말와 저선 총디 캡산데 배 캡산 약고제 통 대래 때네 캡산디 두기가 탑람디 약고 슈지디 두투고가 통선은 미디 총디 아니 직자야 샘슈를 마선의 슈지는 배수시 제투로 배디나시 저선 동반이 땡진 제와 중에 땡진 참모 도와제 동반이 도와도 상기 고방 투기가 받에 체명이고 상기 고방 체명해 봐니 체명에 있는 상지요 고방 토에게 탑람디야디 하고요도 되는 인자 다 가르리고서 심순 마서 심제 탐지 상지요 고방 마서는 탑민우 심비오 고미에게 장슈 셈디 학벌도 장슈 셈 고미야리아 셈쇼를 마서는 보와를 쉬리고와 지나다 가르선 상지요 고방 여바 통 니 여바 토에 탑람지 통에도 당의 상지요 고방지 톱투구도 저 토비아도 톱투구도 지나다니 베스시징이 토벌 지긴 인생의 상여고 토벌 지긴 인생 비게 삼로데 장슈 셈데 아니 학바도 야 아니 숙침부 깨야야 니버처 따야야 판도시 용고래지 지상 바여 봐서 장슈 셈 냠래 장슈 셈 냠래도 숙침부 해야도 파신 중에 냠내들라 안데 마진에 타 제고 준비기 삼로도 숙체리도 그러와 지난 베절이야 될이야 안빼 맞아 장주쌤 냠내지야 다 파신 중에 냠내지야야 상교고바 토야들이야 안지빼는 뽀벌 마서는 뽀버 휴리거다 땡쇠를 마서 당이 톱투도 제 투구도 세상에 대기 제인세대 뽀버다 땡쇠리 숙체 몰래야도 니 지금 냠는 제알이야 배술 마서는 쉬우칠 지기 두고 걸어 세상 동리 또 베기 다 개발을 어디 해서 개발을 개발 디운 거래서 바위 규스
To take an illustration from society to show this point, an entrepreneur someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, they will regularly look for opportunities that they can to create a new business and thereby to create a profit. And when they find an opportunity and they see that this is as an untapped part of the market, the next thought is, how can I take advantage of this? How can I fulfill this aspiration of making a success of this opportunity that I see? And then if they come up with a plan that they have confidence in, they will make great effort. They will form their business and strive to fulfill their goals. If another person sees an opportunity and they see, yes, there's a gap in the market here, they too will then think, how can I fulfill this objective? How can I set up a business? Can I take advantage of the situation? But they see that there are too many obstacles. They see that they cannot, for whatever reasons, achieve their goal. They're not going to make an effort at all. So even if we were to bring these two together, two different people seeing the same opportunity in the market, and they both come up perhaps with the same plan, but the one sees that plan as achievable, something that definitely can be achieved, and the other one sees obstacles there. The one will strive and the other will not. So this then we can liken to what I've just presented, that when through having trust or faith in one's teacher and the teachings, one meditates on emptiness and continues based on merely faith or only faith in one's teacher and the teachings, one continues repeatedly over a sustained period to meditate on emptiness. One will then come to some understanding of emptiness. And as that understanding deepens within oneself, one will eventually give rise to a valid cognizer, realizing emptiness. And here one will know Buddhahood is possible because the chains that keep me bound in suffering, these I myself can destroy. And how? In dependence on continuing to follow the guidance of our teachers, I can gain freedom, enlightenment. And here then, a deep yearning arises within the practitioner because they know Buddhahood is possible, not just in theory, but possible for them themselves. And they will strive to become a Buddha. And if these meditations have been done in accordance with their teacher's instructions, they will have always been done within, these meditations on emptiness would have always been done within the context or within an envelope of bodhicitta, to the extent that their bodhicitta has already been generated, that bodhicitta will become intense. They will be striving now, this meditator will be striving now to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness so as to sever the ignorance of self-grasping, not for their own purpose, but for the purpose of others, for the purpose of all sentient beings. And thereby, their bodhicitta will become intense. And with this powerful bodhicitta, this practitioner will not only make great effort in the meditations on emptiness, but also in their development, the cultivation of all 6 perfections. So here we can see the relationship between the wisdom realizing emptiness, bodhicitta, and the activities of a bodhisattva, the 6 perfections. So again, through first having confidence or faith in one's teacher and the teachings, engaging in the meditations on emptiness as presented within the context of bodhicitta. When one gains ever deeper experience of the meditation on emptiness, this will lead to heartfelt conviction, a strength of mind, a confidence that even me, even someone like me, can become a Buddha. And this ignites the bodhicitta within one, and one will strive for the sake of others to realize emptiness and to cultivate all six perfections.
Mingyang Taoye Zim Yeba de Do, then the Chedam Rashing to be Dongbu, Dongba, Doba ina, Chizan that Ba Yeba, Sosu Rangi, Jam, Caso Sem Gomiatan, Passion to be Yamlecha, Labardo, some then the Ninto Pieje, Gigore, then a Gigom Yodu, and then a new and you don't know Jubu, and San Yokoba Tovalia, and the Gomato to Gores, Chizan. 电中参谋多把的东运多被给电的朋友电的使用过的，让给上九个把推呀，什么当的朋友电的需要的也是。
The sequence then is through recognizing first how phenomena appear, then through having gained experience by means of repeatedly over a sustained period, investigating through many different techniques, investigating many different phenomena, coming to recognize they do not exist in the way they appear, they're empty of existing by way of their own nature, but yet that doesn't mean they're non-existent, they are dependent arisings, dependent on imputation by mind. One comes to a realization of emptiness, and comes to realize emptiness together with a realization of subtle dependent arising. This comes together with the arisal of the determination to act in accordance with reality. And this equates to being ethical. Being ethical means ensuring that one's mind is not afflicted by, not under the influence of the afflictions. In other words, that keeping one's mind in accordance, or one's way of thinking in accordance with reality. And what keeps us serves to guard our mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions, but remaining rather ethical, is the mental factor of conscientiousness, which is what we see in this verse we're still discussing. And this too comes with the confidence that has arisen from our understanding of emptiness and subtle dependent arising, that Buddhahood is attainable. So all of these sequentially, progressively, come about in dependence on repeated training over a sustained period.
Shen simja damji digi chubya da, shen simja damji dunga la chagu du se be jam ni ji ki yodu, chisa shen simja damji digi chubya de kan chupo re, dunga se de kan se ore se du, da dunga yong yu di nyo mo ba le ten li gor ba, de rang la so so la nyo mo de je mi shan da la ya khon le dunga le ba de sha khon ro nga ja nyo mo ba ke ba le ten nyo dunga li gor ba. Chisa da khon ne Nyomo Bache, Gudi, Tasi Mari, Dinsi Marik Bache. Chisan Dinsi Mariba, Tombani Tobe Lodi, Consulia Combaina, say to you about the Tablamdi, Hago Sarwa, Hago Wanza, Jezan Consulia, Consul Digi Juviala, Pajimba Yamlin, Jicasa Jinsor Yamlin Patiana. Dunga Sealia, Gu, Nyomo Payala, Nyembodi. Denis temba ina consulia and go say to do Jezan so stage so rang some taba nashi consul pa lobdin je consulia gomjuben Jezan consul nyomoba, Desha Kondo, Nyomoba, Tasimariba, Pantudo, Deep Pantubaina, Kovale, Tenle, Tudo, Jazangi Consolia, do Tembaina, Tablam di Tentudo, do Tentudo, Ditemba, the Cosinium Jabalagina, Sanjuko, Top Tudo, Jazangi Conso Semjan Tamje, Sanjuko Hongolia, I think he tablam the Haukudo, Sambeke, the nigger how go do, Jazan Shan Semjan to Dungala, Jahudu, Digi Jubudu, Dingy Jiggy, Sembe, somebody. 마시게 닝도없다 숙청보 삼노 숙청리 두고 제사고 가서는 탑람 찾아 하고 그거로와 코즈 가르가르 띵고 탑람 ጤ바 있나 아니 디기 냐바도 아니 코비 동al 저 두고요 바디 하고 와인자 아니 이게 안 샤샘자 탐지를 동아다 자나 셈베기 니지기야다 샬레 잠제기야 샤샘자 탐지 코비 동아 타다자지 상예사랑의 꾸긴 셈베 하산 남다 예디 곧 디게알이야 베마세베게 인도당 안 세뷰 체리고 인도다 심주가제 체외네 안 디sem기 고판도 제체지 두고 봐 제사디 동반이네 땡중에 담 또바이나 안데 하고 있네 시행이야 잠바던 저와 니체 하산 남다 개발이야 안데 지 개바디 안 누가 공부도 당도 보래지
It's quite clear the benefits that the wisdom realizing emptiness brings for ourselves. But the benefit isn't for oneself, the benefit doesn't come to oneself alone, but to others too. Especially if one has been engaging in these meditations always within the context of bodhicitta. Then one will already have love and compassion to some extent developed within ourselves. We will feel love for others, wanting all others without exception to experience happiness, and compassion for them, wanting them to be freed of pain and suffering. And now that we've given rise to a wisdom realizing emptiness, together with the subtle understanding of dependence arising, and we have that resulting confidence that Buddhahood is achievable, the love and compassion within us will grow ever stronger, because we have long since recognized the cause of our suffering, and now we have certainty, not mere intellectual certainty or certainty based on faith in our teacher and the teachings, but a certainty that has come about in dependence on our own realization that freedom is possible. And freedom is not possible only for me, but any being can achieve freedom. Because the cause is the same, the ignorance of self-grasping. So turning this confident mind, this powerful mind within us, to the condition of others, recognizing that they now are suffering far worse than I currently am, in that by this point in our realization, in our spiritual development, we are no longer so drawn to mundane pleasures and problems, and therefore our mind is no longer so troubled by emotional upheavals or suffering. We are much more peaceful and calm, but also powerful. But recognizing that others have not attained this understanding of emptiness, and therefore they are still drawn to, through desire, for things which do not exist in the way they appear. And they are repelled from things which do not exist in the way they appear, and therefore are suffering. And they are suffering in this way despite yearning for peace, even a brief respite from suffering. And knowing that freedom is possible not only for ourselves but for them too, if only they were to attain the same realization, if not greater than we have achieved, they will achieve peace of mind as well. This will give us a yearning inside to strive to spiritually develop so as to be of benefit for others. And to the extent that we now are spiritually developed, we will want to utilize our skill to be of benefit to others, to live a life of greatest meaning and be of benefit to others, to utilize this experience this meditative, this realization that we've gained, independence on knowledge, to utilize this to guide others to achieve the same level, if not greater, of freedom. This strength of mind, this conviction, comes about through knowing that the final goal of Buddhahood is possible, knowing it is possible. And this gives a great strength of mind, a confidence. And with that, we can easily navigate through all obstacles, seeing them for how they really exist, as empty, and interact with others in a way of great benefit.
마우스레 셈슈 슈실리르와 셈슈 침부실리르와 어다디 겹투구 탑람 데네신 겹구도 셈비 겹여게 탑람 여바 하고 겹투구 여바다 하고나 다고 셈슈마 디겹여야 베 셈슈 첼리르와 다 주지나 딤셔는 디 겹여게 탑람 여바 하모고 겹투구 여바 하모고는다 겹투사 말씀비 다 닝제 삼마도 안데 띵에 직제고도 이내 탑시 가미도 사지 샤샤마도 닝지삼마도 디지게 슈침불리 말와 지산 탑람 여바데 하고 겹투구 여바데 하고 이래 사바도 셈슈 계제는 남사디 겹여게 베즈체고로와 안디나신 직바래다 지산 셴셈전 탐주 동알을 차다 안데 koyo dunga la te digi tutu yobe tablam dang an tuku yoba de ha goyo de dele bezun je de jamni ji kette koyo dunga lo joyal ya ngi class nam da kia la ngi kyob gi sembige semju cheli gro da dene ge ngan ju ge kyob tuku yoba da yoba tuku yoba ha mogo dene ge ji tablam de ya wa ha mogo de ani ji ge dunga semjan de jamlin semje ganga te 닝제 da se samado 딩이 제고도 선비게 삼도디 네 제고도 이내다가 탑시 가면도 와서 배 삼다지 마셈줄 마선은 마 딩이 제고도 네 가는 제투그래가 탑시 민도 와서 배 삼다지 맞아 뽑을 마서 마자지 자기마도 디 셈시기 말아 제자데 디나 학바도 탑림다 하고 투구요 받아 탑을 요 받아는 근데 베디나 신진은 안에 셈시기 요 받이 디레 디네 자데다 동방이 땜바 동방이 땜중 참마다 동방이 또반 바유인 세르 제상 잠니제 아가스 잠바다 닝제 하산 남다 게디데 기투고레 바유바 디스기투고레 사다 샹레 셴든 제발라야 디스기투고레 라니 산지오고마 토야데 장주 셈냠는 제다 파진주기 냠는 제야데야 근데 야용투고레 바유 세데 바유인 세데 어두신 용투고레 세디싱도
What I've been presenting, the commentary to this verse, is the great benefit that comes from feeling empowered, as opposed to how we often feel in situations where we observe suffering, which is powerless. We may feel powerless in terms of ourselves and transforming ourselves, or powerless in helping others. Whereas if we do continue in our training, or to the extent that we continue in our training, and thereby experience success in our training, the feeling of powerlessness that we have, or even hopelessness, will be completely eradicated, and we will feel empowered based on our own experience of transforming ourselves. For example, if we think of a situation where we see perhaps a child in water, a child who can't swim, struggling in water, we know the child's life is in danger. Of course, compassion is going to arise within us. If we feel powerless because we can't swim, there's no mobile phone reception, and there's nothing to throw in, all we can do is perhaps shout instructions or call for help. But more than that, we're powerless. What can we do? But if, on the other hand, we have developed skills, we can swim, or we have other skills, we can do something to help this suffering being before us. And we will readily do so. Because of the power of our compassion and our wisdom, we will know there is something to do, our wisdom, and our compassion will compel us to do something to help. Similarly, through making repeated effort over a sustained period, we'll know that the techniques of the Buddha Dharma work, are effective. And our initial understanding of this was merely intellectual. It is now experiential. Through having gained a valid cognizer, realizing emptiness and subtle dependent arising, we will have a tremendous strength of mind. And that strength of mind will be ever increased because of the accompanying minds of love, compassion, and the arising of the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. And these virtuous minds are all accompanied by the mental factor of conscientiousness. And with this incredible strength of mind, we will readily do all that is required in a skillful manner to benefit others in the way they need most.
Baye yin said that the Baye yin said the Tongba that Tenju topic that her doing the nigger torn to Kabla and the Baye Carligris and Arazulia, Sosukula, and Sanji Koban Toya and the Chike Sanju Koban Semeng Ebanyeda, Delatene, and the Sanju Koban Topiki Chanju Sim to get Labor the Kia, and the Party to get Yamlendiki Labor Shukche Yada, and Nintop Chelia, the Yungri Chiche. And Dimase, and Shengi Tunja by Naya, Shen Dunga said, and Digi to be a tablam de Chasa, how go and Shen Dungal, Job took you about the nigger, how go and do, Shenlia, Jambat and Zawa, Shen Simjan Tamju, Kuru Dungal Tajia, Taransan is a cooking, Sebege, Fasan Namda, Gialia, and the Nintopta, and the Shukche Ligis, they saw Bayu Yin said the Bayu, you know that, you said, didn't it in the Yunkuri said, do some words, the Bayu Yin said, Chasa Tomba, Tinjung to Jebache. Sin Jebachi, Tinjung Shanchilla, Tunin Tubachi Hako, Tunin Tuba Hako do, Kalama de Rangun Tuba de Meva Tomba the Hako, Tomba the Hako do, Della Tene, Jamnija Combiata, Janshu Sem Combia, Passion to get Yamnija, the naked Ninto Chembokia, and Labarduskia, Dintinica Valatine, and Sanjo Covade, Tanya, Yobo Totuya, the Yunguri said, Bayo said that's a Tombani, Tinjung Tramo Toba, that Tombani Tobegi. Della tene jevu disu yunguri says Rua disumorda.
Through spending quite some time on this verse, what I hope that is clear is the mutual dependency between our various virtuous minds. So through your continued effort in receiving teachings and reflecting on those teachings and applying what you have reflected on in formal session between sessions, in other words, throughout your daily activities, in this way, one's understanding of reality will grow. As we gain confidence through our investigation and based on knowledge that the way phenomena appear is not how they exist. They are empty of existing the way that they appear, but they do still exist. They exist dependent on imputation by mind. As we come to gain ever greater familiarity with this, confidence grows within us. As we start to see we are no longer so drawn to objects of attachment or repelled from objects that are of anger, we gain ever more confidence in the method, in the Buddha Dharma itself. And through this confidence, we also gain confidence that the paths of liberation lead to liberation, and that liberation and Buddhahood themselves are possible. And engaging in these meditations on reality, accompanied by meditations on love and compassion, we'll start to feel ever closer to others. Because as we looked at last week, our understanding of reality also comes to bring, shows to us our dependency, our interconnected relationship with others. We are not self-powered or independent or existing free and unconnected with others. Rather, we are entwined with them. Therefore, our happiness, their happiness, has a relationship of dependency. Thinking about all of these points together, we come to see that how our meditations on love and compassion have an impact on our meditations on reality, and so do our meditations on reality have an impact on our meditations on love and compassion. And these grow together. And in particular, to the extent that we come to realize reality, this serves to empower our meditations on love and compassion. Gaining confidence in this way, on the method, on the path, we'll want to interact with others in a way that only benefits them, and thereby to create the causes to eventually be able to guide and lead them to their own liberation. Now we come to the next verse from Nagarjuna's Wisdom of the Middle Way, Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way. So my translation is a little different from what's in the book, but the meaning is the same. For that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist. For that reason, that which is not empty, such phenomena do not exist.
다나 강라에 마도 랑원이 다신 집에 천나 강라에 마도 랑원이 좀 동바 마도 랑원이 좀 니기요 마 랑을 동바리 와서 동바 인자 안에 최대에 가능스 요래서네 현실의 딘중 마인배 현실의 되네 주바 마도 안에 마되네 주비 최 강야 미도서 제가 강치를 강 다신 집에 천나 강라에 마 랑원이 좀 동바 동상 진바리샤 동상오 인바인자 나 최근에学배네 현실의 되네 중화 마도 현라 마대비기 마딘비 최강의 민도 곳에 강치 된주 마인비 최가 여바 마이스 니가 강치 된주 마인비 최가 여바 마이스 최가야 지자 현라 되네 주바게 강라마 랑원이 주바 동바리 사제 강치르서 되네 인장 안다 최디게 제바지 강라마도 랑문을 매래 아니 가르쳐버려 다 가르쳐요래라네 딘중 마인바 현실의 되네 주바 마인베게 최강야미도스.
So read the verse again, and then again as commented on the first two lines. For that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist. For that reason, that which is not empty, such phenomena do not exist. So looking at the first two lines, for that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist. So here, for that reason, refers to what we have been looking at thus far. One has investigated a variety of phenomena and come to recognize that every phenomenon appears to us as if it is independent or self-existent. Every phenomenon appears in this way. But when we investigate, we recognize it is empty of existing in the way that it appears. It's empty of being independent. It's empty of being existent by way of its own nature or essence. Recognizing that every phenomenon is empty of being independent, how do they exist then? And they exist as dependent, as mutually dependent. It's dependent on other. So here, just to then bring in some of the terminology here. Phenomena are empty of being self-existent, rather they are dependent on others. So in other words, they're empty of being independent, but rather are mutually dependent or dependent on others. So that is the meaning then of these first two lines. For that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist.
Galai Matuba Rangun Tribute, Dongba Insa, Dongba Yichu, Ranshin Tribute, Dongba Insa, and the Tenjun Namja Tigris or Dongba Mayna, Galama Rangun Tribute, Dongba Mayna, Galama de Rangun Trubach Yorwa, Yobaina, Galama Rangun Trubach Yobaina, and the Yor Unidroya Merwa, Shenja Duomarwa, Shenjila Madu, Kan Yordrem of a Chaduk. Says I did Tenjun, Shala Dun Truba, said Tenjun the Yongomares. Says I Tenjun and Namsha, Shenjila Dun Truba, Shenjila Dun Truba Yobadi. Says I Tenjun Mahimbi Chukaya, my Shenjila Dun Truba Jayares. Says I did Rashi Madu, Tomba Inza, Tenjun and Namsha Tigres.
Staying with the first two lines. For that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist. So in these two lines, one sees, one comes to understand both emptiness and dependence arising. And how so? It is because phenomena are empty of existing independently, that they are empty of existing independently, that they can be dependent arisings. In that, if they were independent, they could not be dependent. So this is how we see the two together. When one recognizes that something is empty of being independent, it therefore can be dependent. If it were independent, it could not be dependent. Because if it were independent, it would not be affected or require causes, or have parts, or require imputation by mind. It would be independent. But recognizing that phenomena are empty of being independent, we understand that because the phenomenon exists, it exists dependently.
최 탐제 라싱 주변 동바인산 덴지게 남자 티기리 했어요. 디네 자다 나와 주기 샘디네 라싱 주되어 있나? 나 샘디 주어다 키네 메르와. 셴라 뜨고 말 주어도에 메르. 주어도에 당보 가르신 다가라래. 야 줘요 말 둘 줘요 말에. 야 줘면은 주어 친제 야 줘면은 아니 산지고 뭐 토요 말 탈바 탐지기 묘고 뭐 토요 말에. 디 토요면은 아주기 냠는지는 냠내 이렇게 줘요 말에. 지단 디네 인상 지상 나중에 샘 라싱이 맞추바레스. 나도 샘디 라싱이 맞추바 인자 아니 샘디 아주 셴라 뛰는 주바레스. 셴라 뛰는 주바 인자 탈바다 템지 기벽고 마셔야 돼 셴라 뛰는 용고를. 지상 나중에 탑람 배수이지 냠는 제바이나 셴지 나도 샘디 냠는 제바를 뛰네. 나도 샘디 주와 다자야 아니 요모벌 탐지 빵야다 안 탈바 탐지 기보고 톱 투구래 했어야지 돈달라 제가 라신이 마주바 인자 맞아 현실을 뛰는 주고래 현실을 뛰는 주바자 나도 탑람 될 뛰네 냠는 제바 이나 아니 녀모바 세게 뽕야게 탑람디 비지 제바는 녀모바디 바세 투구래 타바다 탐지 기보고 방 토에게 탑람디 먼저 베지 제바는 될 뛰네 타바 탐지 기보고 톱 투구래 제가 라신이 마주 탐지 라신이 주변고 동바인자 탈바다 탐지 기보고 톱 투구래 아니 녀모바치다 빵 투구래 대 라신이 주바 동바 마인바는 라신 줍대 봐 있나 탈바다 탐지 기보고 톱 투구 말에 녀모바데 빵 투구 말 다가 녀마 다가라마도 교화기네 따토요 말와 제가 니네자 라신이 주변 동바인자 나주기 띠네 여바래 마딘 바치 가요 마 띠네 여바래 띠네 여바자 탑블블라 띠네 녀모바 세야다 동아 세야다 탑블람 될 야다파 될 엔디기 줍투에 타바탐지 고바도 투그레 세지 언더나 슈라지 숨거다.
First, just to briefly repeat what was said in the previous segment, because the words in English are very similar, can be but difficult to get. So when one realizes, firstly, that phenomena appear as being independent, but recognize, due to having searched for such an independent phenomenon, that they are empty of existing the way they appear, empty of being independent, we realize emptiness. But recognizing that they do still exist, how do they exist then? As dependent arisings. So phenomena are empty of being independent, but the way they exist is dependent. So that was, in brief, what was presented in the previous segment. What's so important about this understanding is the consequence of it is that if our mind existed in the way that it appears, as being independent, as being self-existent, then it would be not impacted by anything at all, which means it would not change. It would not. It would not change. Therefore, our mind would stay constant, always at the level that it is. It could not get worse, but it could also not improve. And if, therefore, mind existed in the way that it appeared, and therefore was being independent, was unchanging, spiritual development would be pointless. Because spiritual development would be impossible. Our mind could not improve. And therefore, Buddhahood would be unattainable. But despite our mind appearing, or our minds appearing as being independent, upon investigation, we recognize that they are empty of existing independently, but the way that they do exist is dependently. They are mutually dependent. This means that spiritual development is possible. Liberation is possible. Because all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, or to express it in the same way as we have been thus far, empty of being independent, but are, because they exist, dependent arisings, this means change is possible, development is possible. And that means our afflicted minds can be reduced, and not only reduced, they can be eradicated completely. And the other side is that virtuous qualities, wholesome minds, these can be developed, and these can be developed so that they predominate, and they can be developed to the point that they are perfected. This is the consequence of recognizing that all phenomena, here in particular our mind, is empty of being independent, but exists dependently.
Adine dechir tongba mayimbi chega yoba mayinosa. Dechir sede dechir tongba mayimbi chega yoba mayinosa. Adin ma tsikniti dechir lo sare dingide.
There was a commentary then on the first two lines, which I'll just read again. For that reason, that which is not dependently arisen, such phenomena do not exist. Now we come to the second two lines. For that reason, that which is not empty, such phenomena do not exist. So I'll read it again. For that reason, that which is not empty, such phenomena do not exist.
다대지 당보 즉 당보니 되게 당보들라 강실세야되게 강실세야되 최담제 라신 유튜브 동바 인장 제 라신 유튜브 동바 인장 안 최담제 땡진 저와 중어레스는 뒤두고래 다 니바다들 니바들 대실세야되게 다 최담제 현래 되는 주바 땡진 저와 중어 인장세 월 대실세야되 제가 대실세 니바되게 대시 당보들라 강치스도와 디 강치세디 최탐제 라신 유튜브 동바 인장 안에 юм체 동바 강치 동바 인장 세디 강치세디 디 인자 최탐제 땡진 저위 남샤 티기리 라로와 다데델야 대시세디 다 최탐제 땡진 저 중원자서 오다 땡진 대시 다데 땡진 юм체 고고래 대신 예바도 동바인데 땡 юм체 고바래 다다다 최탐제 땡진 저와 현라 되는 주바 인장 대치에서 제가 최탐제 라신 주비기 강라마도 랑문의 주바 동바래 세시 지거래 제가 니네 동바 마인바 최가요 말 동바 장야래서 대치 동바 마인비 최가요 바 마인 나세지
the two couplets in this verse both start with for that reason. The reason that they're referring to is opposite but not contrary. The first reason is for that reason that phenomena are empty of inherent existence, they are dependent arisings. Now in the second couplet, the opposite is presented. For that reason, all phenomena are dependent arisings, they are empty. So we're seeing a relationship here. So again, the first couplet presents the reason that because phenomena are empty of inherent existence, they are dependent arisings. Now we turn that around in the second couplet. Because phenomena are dependent arisings, they are empty. Because phenomena are dependent arisings, or mutually dependent, they cannot be independent, because dependent arising or dependency and independence are contradictory. So recognizing the phenomena are mutually dependent, one recognizes that they are therefore empty of inherent existence. Again, because phenomena are dependent arisings, they are empty of inherent existence.
Dene zada dishi sheba da gimze jibare chue condition shen la duene chuba inza tianchen tawa chuare ine za kala ma to rangon ni chuba yo mare chue tamje shen chi la duene chuba tianchen tawa chuare was chisa kala ma to ba rangon ni chuba yo mare rangon ni chuba tong bare si la yode da gare dishin de nga ju dön ba zu cha ba ina ma zu gyu ge sem de ge ma ju ge sem nyom mo ba se de shen la duene shen le duene yung guo res, ngā su digi dige shen la duene chubu res, zi ngā su sem dige shen la duene chubu res, chesa ngā su la kāng la ya ma tuyo ba rang ngu ni chubu dige nyong mong ba che yo ma res, kāng la ya ma tuyo ba chubu dige digi se yo ma res, kāng la ya ma tuyo ba chubu dige ngā su sem ya yo ma res, chesa dini yin sa ngā su nyong mong ba dige shen chi le duene chubu yo ba yin sa, kāng la ya ma tuyo rang ngu ni chubu tong ba res, chesa tong ba yin sa ko 아니 젤레 뛰는 교고 동바 인자 강라마도 랑문으로 매바 인자 아니 콜야 뛰는 주바자 귀디 녀모바데 가르스키 귀레 뛰는 주바자 되게 귀디 매바 서바이나 된 녀모바 째요 말해서 녀모바세 두구레스 당아 저기 귀기 대회 개회 자와 디기디게나 귀현진의 뛰는 주고 인자 아 저기 디기 용야 귀디 아 저기 주바 냠는 제바이나 디제보 디기도 용 두구레스 그래서 동바 많이 봐이나 라신 줍대 봐이나 디와요 말했어 용투 말했어 그래서 동바래 제자다 셴레 뛰는 주바인자 아니 가 저기 귀디 디기용에 귀디를 떼네 디기 용구요 봐서 맞아 디기용에 귀디 주바이나 맞아 디기 줍두 그래 동아요에 귀디 동아디게 귀를 떼네 주고자 동아에 귀디 매봐 쇠바이나 나 가지고 동아를 세투 그래 세지 돈다디 신송고할 때는 막
The meaning of this verse in terms of how to apply it to ourselves is through understanding that because all phenomena are dependent arisings, they therefore are not independent, but empty of being independent. And likewise, because phenomena are empty of being independent, they exist as dependent arisings. So that is what the verse presents. Those are the two ways to look at phenomena. And the way then to apply it to ourselves here is to our mental state, our consciousness, to recognize that as all phenomena are dependent arisings and therefore are empty of being independent, this is the case with our afflictions. Our afflictions are dependent arisings. They come about in dependence on causes. They have parts, and they require imputation by mind. And not only that, they are empty of inherent existence. Same too with our virtuous minds. And here I'll just present it in the opposite way. Our virtuous minds are empty of being independent, and they exist as dependent arisings. Because they are empty of being independent, they can be transformed, because they are dependent arisings. So in brief, all minds, virtuous and afflicted, are empty of inherent existence, or empty of being independent, or empty of independence, but are dependent arisings. And this is important to not just understand intellectually, but to deeply integrate it, because that means that if our virtuous minds and our afflicted minds both are dependent arisings, our virtuous minds can be cultivated and strengthened through accumulating the appropriate causes, and our afflicted minds can be eradicated through not accumulating the causes that lead to their arisal. And there's a relationship between the two, in that a relationship of dependency between the two. As we develop the causes for virtuous minds, this serves to weaken our afflicted minds. And in particular, the cause of virtue, the wisdom realizing emptiness, very directly weakens the opposing afflicted minds. So in this way, we can gain confidence that spiritual development is possible, and not only possible, but achievable, despite long-serving, long-held habits to afflictions. Those habits, with effort and time, can be transformed. Through understanding this verse well, we can have the confidence to keep applying ourselves, no matter how difficult it may be, to transform our way of thinking.
Kindi pa meba soba ina an debu dunga de yungu mare sachi shen de dizang juge du chine tang juge zo ngar de semle tene ki shebo ba za tang de semi tene ki shen de dunga yo ya gi yudi garre sidi az she de shin ma she ba na ji le nyomo ba da di tense mari pa sa de dunga yo ya gyurwa chesa di de shin ye she ba na ji di dunga yo ya gyudi di meba soba ina ane dunga di dele tene yungu yo basan gyudi meba soe shabayina ane dunga yo mares, jibu dunga yungu mares. Jizan di gyudi meba soe kane suyogiri elabne tongpa ni tokpe lo di gomba le tene ane tenzin rangshin dhubba zimba di ma kago re, meba soe gore. Di ma meba soe di duesha tang kondro nga ya nyomo bir kik mares. Di ma jeba na duesha tang kondro nyomo bir ma jeba na di wangi shen le nyoba chibe le ngamba sagi mares. Le masabana le ngambe ongi nga soni kiwa le da dunga yoya di yungu mares. Du chine ma ka thang chikti wata nga su dunga le se thang chikchi. Da digi dhubya eki di anis kanis kyu kari digi se di gyudan kien le tini yungu res. Chisana da gyudan kien di nga zuge nyamlen cheba ina di tebu digi yungu re la yadu gyudan kien di kare labdu shamba tan tsewa. Ani parshin dhugi jimbi jinso dhugi nyamlen janchu sem di sam tamba ina an dela tene ma sam nga zu sem di jamjige sem de jamje sam tang ani ningje sam tang jambaz an jige ya an semja da sanyo go ba togu du sem be sam ta ya da ani shen le nyoba jige me se be churim sam ta ya so su ge an jige shen lunga yusum ko ne shen la pemba dugi in sem be tongwe sam ta ya de sebe nyam le ja du chin samlo diso denige samlo de dichol samlo dige du special cheba ina 안 델레티네 가지고 지부 디기도 두고레스 지산 디송한테 비지 제바이나 델레티네 디기도 두고레스 지산 디네자 가지고 딘진 저와 중화기 그 델레티네 디기도야 딘진 저와 중화기 녀모부 규디마세와레 데네 아니 지부 동아세 투야 아두시네 용고레세 지도 신고 순고로와다
The previous segment, we looked at refutation of inherent existent production from the perspective of first the cause and then the result. And we saw that causes, when they are the object of consciousness, appear as being independent, but are empty of being independent. So too are results, and even the process of production, that too is empty of inherent existence, empty of being independent. Everything that exists in this way, empty of being independent, but exists as a dependent arising. Now bring it to what we're looking at here in these verses. The method to achieve happiness is the method of dependent arising. And we apply it to the causes that need to be accumulated. In other words, the cultivation of the causes for happiness, that's a dependent arising. The result that we're striving to achieve, that comes about independent on the accumulation of causes. So therefore, the cause and the result are dependent arisings, and the method, the process that one goes through, is also a dependent arising. Hopefully what is becoming clear is the variety of objects to take, to see that they appear as being independent, whereas the way they exist is as dependent arisings. And this is the case on the side of the afflicted objects as well as the virtuous objects, as all of them are empty of being independent, but exist dependently. Now we look at the method, which is that of dependent arising, that leads to the attainment of the result of Buddhahood. First, we recognize that it's the ignorance of self-grasping that is the root cause of all our suffering, and that this can be eradicated through the cultivation of the virtuous mind, its antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness, together with the wisdom realizing subtle dependence arising. And to the extent that we weaken the ignorance of self-grasping, we reduce the strength and frequency of the afflicted minds that would otherwise follow, especially when we're engaging in this meditation in a very expansive way, when you recognize that an object of desire doesn't exist in the way that it appears. That will have an impact on the mind that desires it, recognizing that we're desiring something that doesn't exist in the way that it appears. Then that consciousness of desire or attachment, that too doesn't exist in the way that it appears. It can be eradicated. Likewise, the self too, that is now experiencing desire, doesn't exist either in the way that it appears. So here we can use the wisdom side to eradicate, to weaken and eventually eradicate the ignorance of true grasping. And in this way, to the extent that we eradicate this or weaken this, we weaken the strength of the non-virtuous karma we accumulate, and therefore we lessen the causes that lead to rebirth in the lower realms. And as we continue with our development, we weaken the accumulation of all contaminated karma and eventually bring to an end the accumulation of karma that is contaminated. And this is how we progress to the attainment of liberation and enlightenment. So that's the one side, the side of wisdom. The other side is where we accumulate the method minds. So here, these are also dependent arisings. Minds such as love and compassion, they are dependent arisings. We already have love and compassion with such consciousnesses within us, and being dependent arisings, we can cultivate them ever stronger. If they were independent, they could not change. But being dependent, we can cultivate them ever stronger, and as we do, and our love and compassion grows for others, other consciousnesses will become ever stronger, such as ethical restraint. As we have more love and compassion for others, we will not want to be under the influence of the afflictions, because that leads us to harm others. So we'll restrain our mind ethically. So too, as love and compassion grows within us, this will have an impact on the mind of generosity. So there's a relationship of mutual dependency here. Generosity is the wholehearted wish to give of ourselves to others, and this will grow. As too will the mind of patience. As we develop love and compassion, there is a relationship of dependency with patience. The mind of patience is the mind that stays subdued in the face of, or undisturbed in the face of adversity. And to the extent we have love and compassion for others, our mind will stay undisturbed. We will not retaliate in a harmful manner, but only help others in accordance, in response to the harm they give. So in this way, we can come to understand how reflecting on dependent arising leads to both the eradication of suffering as well as the attainment of happiness.
Ani shengi, shenliya jambatan tsewa kiya, shen semja tamche kurwe dunga la chade, ya sanji sila kuigin sepike, nya laksa namda kiya liya, an dela ya bobata nyingche, kasa bobata semshu, karsane tablam chasan kingo la hago wanza, di yungu res. An dine za, ta ngana jugi sem dike, ina dine ki tablam kemba hago yadu, ngā tsukī nyōmōpa dungā yōngā de gyūdān kīla tēdi yōngu chīsā gyūdān kīndi yōngā gyūdān kīndi mēpa sōpa yīnā pāngpa yīnā nyēmbō tē tōngpa yī tōpe shirab tē gōngpa lā tēne nyōmōpa kīyā kī gyū dāsī mārikpa tē mēpa sō tū kōre tē mēpa sōpa yīnā tēla tēne nyōmōpa kīyā mārī nyōmōpa tēne lē sāk mārī lē mā sāpa nē tē tēpa dungā yōngu mārī ēs dungā sētā tablam tēne shē sētā tā dīgī yōngā gyūdiyā ane gyu jamni che janshu sem parshun tuge nyamle chepa la tene en digi tup tugo ra chisanga zo di nyamle chepa ina en tibu digi en san yoko pa tingi dewa san yoko pa top tuguri esa de da dusene da tenjung da toba ni toba la tene toba ina di nesu digi yakbo chinga zo hago ya da nyamle che ya liya ane ning top da ane semshu she li go re esa lakwa di yung go re esa da di ringi shoke di she de di she dina nga zo nyingo jolo din ma mo di shu ya che.
What we've looked at then this morning is come to see that all phenomena, everything that exists dependently and therefore is empty of being independent. Moreover, we've seen that because all phenomena are empty of being independent, the way they exist is dependently. Here, this is showing, what we've looked at this morning is showing the need and the importance of meditating on these two together. Emptiness and dependence arising and emptiness. Recognizing the interrelation between these two realizations. Not seeing them as being unrelated, but as one aiding the other. Moreover, so that's one key point to take away from this morning. The second is to see the relationship between wisdom and compassion, or bodhicitta. and to see how wisdom impacts on bodhicitta, and how bodhicitta or compassion impacts on wisdom. And again, to see this relationship, this mutual relationship between the two, that they do have an impact on others. They also are not separate and unconnected. In that, to the extent that we cultivate wisdom, we come to see that the attainment of freedom from suffering and pain is possible. And that gives us confidence to strive for liberation. But this mind then, accompanied by or held by, conjoined with, held by compassion, will serve to ensure that we're not doing it for purposes of self-interest. We will have an understanding, through our understanding of dependence arising in emptiness, our dependency with others, our entwinement with others. And this will serve to ensure that our cultivation of wisdom is motivated by the wish to be of ever greater benefit to others, not just for self-improvement for one's own sake, but self-improvement so as to be of ever greater benefit to others. And going along with this, as we develop love and compassion within ourselves, this conjoined, or now love and compassion, supported by wisdom. So before we were looking at wisdom supported by love and compassion, now love and compassion supported by wisdom will serve to, as we develop love for others, wanting them to be freed, to experience happiness, and compassion, wanting them to be freed from pain, we'll understand that how this is possible, because wisdom is supporting our love and compassion. It won't just be a mere wishing. We know it's possible. Moreover, through knowing our entwined relationships with others, our love and compassion will grow through its support of wisdom, because wisdom, the wisdom of dependence arising, will lead us to understand our entwined relationship with others, how our happiness and their happiness is connected. So in this way, as we develop our wisdom, it serves to support our love and compassion. As we develop love and compassion, it serves to support our wisdom. And in this way, as we gain ever deeper experience of the path in our own continuum, or cultivate the path ever more so, our conviction, our faith, that the final goal of enlightenment is possible for ourselves. We will strive ever more to spiritually develop, and it'll become ever easier to refrain from afflictions, to keep our mind ethical, and to ensure that wisdom pervades all our virtuous minds. And in this way, our love and compassion will have great power. If you have some questions, then please feel free to ask. Then enjoy your lunch. Thank you.